those right ladders. And I think if anybody, with regards to what Roz has actually achieved in terms of her what she does in the work environment, but also what she's achieved in terms of ultra marathons, I think she's the right person to speak to us about that. So Roz, over to you, and thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Colleen, for that warm welcome, and welcome. Good morning, everyone. I really am thrilled to be here, and it is such a privilege to be able to share with you all how I have navigated the ladders. And it is quite exciting to actually be able to share that with you, because we're all unique. We've all gone through different journeys in our lives. And so I'm excited to share with you how I've navigated them. And I'm hoping that there are some golden nuggets, some key takeaways, or some challenges that will change that will change, or at least positively impact how you navigate the next day. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly. All right. And then I'm just going to come ask Colleen, please, if you can just let me know if you can see my screen. Colleen, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, Rosalind.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. Just checking. All right. So as you heard, my name is Rosalind Karamba. I am sharing with you from Cape Town. And what we're going to cover over the time that we've got together, I'm going to introduce myself, just give you a feel of who I am, what I do, what I'm about, what inspires me. Then I would like to just do a very brief check-in, because right now I'm sitting in a virtual room and I'm very keen not to be the only one talking. So I would like to get your insights and your thoughts very, very quickly. And then I would like to share 5 angles towards navigating the ladders. And based, depending on time, I'll just ask Colleen briefly, depending on time, if maybe we need to take a 5-minute break. Sometimes I find that it just helps to keep us very, very fresh if we go take a stretch glass of water or whatever it is. And then we're going to close off with a commitment and question and answer session. All right. So in terms of our time, you can anticipate that we're likely to finish before 11. So who is Roz? What you can see in front of you is a few pictures that just summarize who I am. So let's start with the first picture, which is the girl in green in the top center. That's myself in grade 4. Very short hair, which was easiest for the parents to manage. And the next picture is me with my 3 children who keep me very busy. Lots of fun being a mom to them. You will see that one of the things I thoroughly enjoy doing is talking and sharing with various people in order to assist them to achieve their goals. And I get to do a lot of that through TEDx as a coach for the TEDx speakers. Whenever somebody puts up their hand and goes through the selection process to be a TED speaker, they actually are paired with a coach to ensure that the standards of TEDx are upheld on that international platform. So I get to support and assist in that very exciting journey. I am also a Toastmaster. I worked with Toastmasters for several years, and I'm going to touch on that briefly, just to explain to you how that came about and how that fits into the whole conversation regarding our ladders. In terms of my background in education, I started off at Rose University in the Eastern Cape. I had the opportunity of completing my MBA whilst the kiddies were smaller. When they were first 2 were 3 and 4. They are now 14 and 15. And I've also completed my Scrum, my SAFE certification, Scrum Master certification, and also the other certification to ensure that I'm up to speed with the whole agile transition, which is really exciting, and I'm very passionate about that. I started off my career at British American Tobacco in their management development program when they were still based in Stellenbosch, and now they are in Cape Town. In the CBD, I had the opportunity of working at the Foschini Group as a business relationship manager, which was like a conduit between IT and business. And then at MultiChoice, I was there serving as the office manager, as an IT manager, and I also did a stint there as a BA. I worked at Principal for 3 months as a product manager and also a business lead, and I'm currently at Old Mutual. I think we might have some sound coming through, or is that a question? Unfortunately, I cannot see the comments. And from the
Roz,
way Teams,
I think it, yeah, I think it was just somebody that was on mute, but that's fine. Carry on. I've muted everybody.
no problem at all. And please, if
Thanks.
there's any questions and you want to ask anything at any point in time, I do welcome it. And if I see that we are running over time, I will mention that we can maybe hold it towards the end. But please feel free at any time. And then do remember that when I'm sharing my screen, I'm not able to see the comments. So Colleen, if possible, would you be able to just highlight to me if there's any comment or anything that comes through the chats?
Will do.
All right. So continuing with just this brief summary of where I am, one of my key passions, as you saw from the intro, is travel. And I do try to travel to a new country each year. Since lockdown levels have been lifted, I took the opportunity to try and catch up with my travels. So earlier this month, I spent a week in Mauritius, and then I also spent a week in Zanzibar. So that was really exciting. So that's just making sure that my passport comes up to date with the passport stamps. That was a commitment I made to myself when I started my career. Other passions include gardening, thoroughly enjoy it, and I would be very, very happy on a farm. And I really enjoy reading and constantly reading at least 5, 6 books at the same time. Um, Based on whatever strikes me at that point in time, but I do tend to juggle all of them at the same time. And in terms of what I do at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, it is training for comrades at the moment, attempting my first comrades next month. So you can look out for me on the app or on TV. And I also got the opportunity to try out for my first triathlon, which was really exciting this year. And I have signed up for my first one, hoping to do an Ironman next year or possibly end of this year if I can get an entry. They were sold out by the time I had made a decision, but you never know. And my other passion is my 2 fur children. Colleen, I've also got 2, both of them from Fallen Angels, which is a rescue place. I really enjoy them. They keep me calm, and they've been my colleagues during lockdown.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I'm going
Sorry,
to
guys,
move on.
please mute yourselves.
From my side, can I confirm, please, if there's any sound coming through? I think I'm hearing a lawnmower from a neighbor's home, just one of our dynamics of being at home. Is there any sound that's coming through?
No, so we can't hear the lawnmower, Roslyn.
Fantastic. All right. So before we continue, I need to emphasize one thing. I have checked our load shedding schedule, and I'm not on the load shedding schedule in my area. However, the municipality have committed to us that they might actually be doing some maintenance. What that means is that if there's any interruption and you see me going offline for a second, please do not leave the session. I would love it if you would stay, simply because my UPS or my backup should at least reconnect us as soon as possible. The other disclaimer as well is that everything I'm going to share with you is my views. So I'm not representing any of my employers. So you're hearing Rosalind Karamba's views. However, I do invite you to dig into the session because you never know what might be interesting. And as always, if we risk nothing, we do gain nothing. But if we risk something, we get the opportunity to learn something, and maybe it will unlock something that could possibly change or impact on your tomorrow. So that's my invitation and my disclaimer to you. Right. So I mentioned earlier that I'm in a virtual room right now. And when you're in a virtual room, at times you see these initials, but when I see initials, I tend to imagine them sometimes as eyes in a dark room, especially when we have load shedding. And you wonder, what are the people behind the room who are looking at me? What are they thinking? What were their challenges, their concerns, their thoughts? What triggered them this morning and what inspired them when they woke up this morning? So what I'm going to ask you to do, please, is to join me on Menti very briefly, to just share one word which describes your career so far before we go into our conversation regarding the ladders. So I've got that code there on Menti, and for anyone who's not familiar with Menti, don't worry, it's not too difficult. I'm going to share that link in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'll share the link in the chat. You can click on the link itself. There we go. And then it will give you options to add words, and you can add more than one word. I trust everyone has received. Hey, there we go. I can see you.
Roz, one of the ladies has asked you to please share the code.
Sure, no problem. We'll share the code right now. I'll put that in the chat. There we go. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. I can see the thoughts that are coming through right now. So we've got people who are sharing energized, a roller coaster growth, hungry for more, slow growth, that's very real, uncertain, satisfying, stressful, unexpected, dynamic, apprenticeship, interesting, fruitful, fortunate, gratifying, scary, yes, great opportunity, challenging, exhausting, rewarding, a jungle gym, refreshing, confusion, empowering, slow, stagnated, boring. Need to move on and not sure. Wow, thank you everybody for sharing those. Partly cloudy, yes. Constantly changing. Right. Thank you, everybody, for sharing those insights with us. It allows me to at least engage and know who's in the room and what it is you're also going through. And what I want to share is that everything that you've put here, it is valid, it is real, and there is no right or wrong. Having said that, let's go back to our conversation regarding how this all then translates to navigating the right ladders. So I'm going to get out of Menti now, and I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. And you'll be very thrilled to know that the slide packs are very light, because the key thing is that I'm looking forward to engaging using the voice. So not as much reading today. Right. Just slight timing delay on my screen, but you should be able to see my screen now. So in terms of expectations, you'd probably be wondering, what is the right ladder? And I think it's very, very important that I share with you that the right ladder can look like the signpost that you're seeing right now. It's different. It's as unique and as different as your DNA on your fingerprint. And many times in our lives, it will actually look like there is multiple ways to go, and some of them do not look right. Some of them look perfect, but which is the right one? And the good news I've got for you is that the right one is the one that is right for you. But then that poses the next question: how do I then know which is the right one for me? What I'm going to attempt to do and with you in the next hour that we've got is that I'm going to share with you how I've navigated the ladders and the decisions or the crossroads that I've encountered, and how I have journeyed and taken different directions here and there, sometimes brought myself back, and how that is all translated towards climbing the ladder that I feel has been right for me. And my hope is that there'll be something that you can take away from the session. So we might have some CEOs in the session. We might have some IT leads, project managers, developers. We might have interns, trainees, people on different phases of the ladder. So typically, when I started off, for example, in my tertiary or at high school, it seemed as if there was one sequential ladder. You do this, and one day I will be a billionaire who is a CIO, etc. So it was a fantastic expectation, which, as I discovered, was maybe a different ladder to what I anticipated. So the other ladders in time, I realized that, hold on, maybe the journey for me is going to be different from my colleague. So from my initial career starting off at British American Tobacco in a fantastic management development program, there were 14 of us, and there was an opportunity to rise through the ranks as long as one delivered and satisfied all the career promotion opportunities and the criteria. However, as I was navigating them, I realized that, hold on, maybe my ladder might not look like the sequential ladder that I showed you. It could possibly look like a hopscotch, which is that first one. But then there were some other aspects of my career. For example, when I started working in between IT and the business. And that might have looked like a spider web at that time, because during that time, I was actually quite curious that I would like to be on the other side, especially after having been so IT focused and only pushing the IT agenda. I thought to myself, it's very important for me to get a taste of what it is like to be the business. The business will feel like they're constantly at the mercy of IT who do not understand what the journey means for them, and IT who do not deliver on their commitments. So for me, that led to a move. And sometimes people use the word lateral move. However, I would like to offer that the move can actually not necessarily be lateral, but it can be a change, a shift in different directions, pretty much like a spider web in which we're exploring different facets of our career. And why is that important? It's important because you learn new things about yourself, new challenges. So one of the challenges of that role in which I was in between IT and the business was that it was described as, my manager at that time, really fantastic lady, she actually said, this role is going to be standing in front of a firing squad. The business might have a gun and they might be shooting at you because you're representing IT, but you're also supporting the business, but you are the face of IT, but also their support. So then everything, every issue, every concern, every escalation, a server that might go down in Limpopo, stats that were not updated, sales stats that have not come through in retail by Monday morning, and how they've impacted on business reporting on Monday afternoon. All of that is escalated to you. So all of those dynamics, I might not feel the impact of how that impacts the business. When, for example, I was in IT, however, being in the business, it allowed me to empathize, understand, and also engage with the business in a different way. However, there came a time as well when I realized that, hold on, I'm now working with the business. I'm also in IT, but I would like to have a greater influence in terms of resolving some of the issues that arise because I'm working with IT. I'm also working with the business, but I feel that my span of influence could be greater. For example, if I am in IT or if I am holding a different position in the business. And what that might look like, it might now look like roller coasters in your career. At that time, that looked like a roller coaster for me. And at a certain point in time, it felt like a dip. Why? Because I don't want to be sitting. I'm not a person who will sit and ponder about how could this be or how can I make this better. I need to stand up and do something. That's probably why I run and try these triathlons and now trying for Ironman, because I want to see what is the next thing that I could actually be doing better. And that resonates with my values of being involved in the solution and not just being able to articulate the problem. So yes, at a certain point in time, what might have appeared like navigating a spider web in my career and exploring different facets, I came to a low. But that low was not negative. Why? Because at that time, I realized that it's important for me to actually be focusing and growing my leadership skills. And that then translated to an aspiration to move towards a senior leadership role and also improve and enhance my learning as a senior leader. And that led me as well to considering an MBA. So what am I trying to highlight to you at this point? That there is no right or wrong, but there is something to be learned at each point. And we're a big room right now with more than 100 people. And unfortunately, we are not structured as 100 people right now to have many brainstorming sessions. But what I do encourage you to consider, especially if you're at a point where maybe it might be feeling slow, boring, stagnating, take a step back and just consider the spider web or the hopscotch path. What are the learnings that you have actually gained in the last season or even in the last 2 years in which we navigated staying alive during a pandemic? How has your career transitioned during that time? What are the learnings? What are the insights that you've gained from that? And maybe that might actually help you to just have a vision of what the next step might need to look like. Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move towards the 5 angles that are very much under being the platform and the pillars of my career. So the first one you'll see is the elastic band. Second one is values. Next one is timing. And the last one is interconnectedness. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on positive experiences and also touch on negative experiences. What I will not do, however, is that I will not share company names because none of that is a reflection on the company. It is a reflection on my experiences, what I learned, because as humans, we go through highs and lows each day. And sometimes I might a person can arrive at the office feeling stressed and anxious. Why? Because maybe they just dodged a taxi that turned without indicating in front of them. And they were just missed an accident. So there is different things that we encounter each and every single day that impact on our experiences. So as I mentioned to you, some of these are my experiences, which I'm sharing with you comfortably in this forum. And of course, I will not be sharing any company names further, but I'm very, very grateful for every environment that I've worked in because I have gained something through each and every experience. So let's start off with the elastic band. And that is the only slide I'm going to share with you regarding the elastic band. The rest, I will talk through it. And of course, if you've got anything that you'd like to share, any comments, please feel free to share in the chat. Would you tie a sandwich with an elastic band? Can I get somebody to answer yes or no? Just so that I know that the sound is working and that I'm still not alone in the virtual room. Would you tie a sandwich together with an elastic band?
Oops.
No.
No, I wouldn't know why.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that feedback. So one of the things that's really important as I was navigating the ladders was to actually ask myself, am I in the right place for this season now in my career? What I'm trying to do here now, is this relevant for where I see myself? So for some phases of my career, I've spent a short time in a certain role because at a certain point in time, I realized, hold on, what I'm trying to do here might not necessarily be relevant for what I would like to aspire towards. So like the elastic band, I realized that no, this might not be relevant now. I need to transition. And someone I saw on our Mentimeter wrote, board may be stagnating. And I'm wondering where you are at in terms of that. Now, I want to share another angle as well, because I am a mom. I'm a mom of 3 children. My first 2 children were 1.5 years apart. So very much like twins. I was working full time at the time that I was managing a program at work and also doing my MBA. Do you know what happened to the elastic band that was called Rosalind? It stretched out to capacity and was ready to snap. So as you're navigating your career, I wonder if you know what it looks like when you are ready to snap. I saw on some of the slides that some have written depressing, slow. What does that look like to your colleagues, to your family, to your performance towards your goals at work? How does that translate? Because I might be feeling it, but how does it manifest in how I execute my job? And I'm going to give you a simple example. I went to buy new running shoes because my other shoes have now got 1,000 kilometers. We have to change them at every point when they've got 800 to 1,000 kilometers. Otherwise, you risk getting injured and the cushioning is not so good. So I went to a shop in a mall to get new running shoes. You go into a shop and it was not a busy time. There were 3 consultants in the shop. I walk in, they're not busy. 2 of them lifted up their heads and continued what they were doing. Maybe one was stock taking, maybe one was dusting, and another one by the till just glanced to the side. I needed assistance because I'm not a running shoe expert. So I went up and actually spoke to them. Excuse me, good morning. Can someone assist me with the following? I need a fitting and assessment for my shoe because I need a stability shoe. But the last time I got an assessment was 2 months ago, etc., etc. Could someone assist me with a fresh assessment and also just give me guidance in terms of the right shoe for me? I'll see. I just want to finish off what I'm doing right now. That was the response I got. I was like, okay. And I stood there for a few minutes. Now I just want to position to you that I'm in a mall, a very busy mall, and no usually, but it's a quiet time. There's no one else in the store. And I couldn't help wondering, from a customer experience point of view, I've gone in there expecting to be wowed. I've gone in there expecting to be able to engage with people who've got the time and the capacity and hopefully the enthusiasm to be able to assist a customer who definitely needs a shoe because I need the shoe in 2 days. So I don't have time to shop around. I'm leaving the store with the shoe. But I'm not met with that enthusiasm. I'm not met with that support or that assistance. So in the same way, whenever we're feeling stretched out, we have to ask ourselves, we have to know within ourselves, How does that look like? How does that feel like? How does that impact on everything I want to achieve in my career, as I progress in my career, as I tackle the challenges at work, as I present in a session today, as I manage a retrospective meeting, whatever I need to do, however my demeanor is when I am feeling stretched out like an elastic band. Am I aware? That is the first thing. Once I am aware of how I'm feeling, for example, I'm feeling anxious, a taxi almost hit me. What then do I need to do about it? So let's play back to Rosalind's experiences from her career. I mentioned to you that there I am, I'm a mom, I've got 2 small children. I'm working towards my MBA. I'm exhausted. I've got work 4 hours, and being IT, there's a go live, there's production issues post the go live. I've woken up at 3 o'clock to study because I'm at the office during the day. And when I come back, I've got to assist and check the children's homework. And I am burnt out, and I just don't know how to do things better right now. At that moment in time, I must tell you that I did take a drastic step. What was the first step? The first step I realized was to actually be able to list down everything that is bothering me. And once I'd done that, I realized I was exceptionally overwhelmed. And when we're overwhelmed, I realized that, hold on, then I'm procrastinating because everything feels too much. I'm not able to start. And I sat down and listed all of those areas, as I mentioned to you. And then next to each one, I listed, what is the support that I have available to me for each facet I'm trying to achieve and work towards on? So, for example, in my career as the program manager at that point in time, when I was busy with the MBA, I then went to my manager and said, listen, we've got the following challenges. I'm finding that I'm actually spending more time than I need to trying to look for a meeting venue. This was pre-COVID. I'm struggling to find a meeting venue to accommodate the 40 people that we're needing to engage with in this project, in this program on a regular basis. Would it be possible for us to get an administrator to maybe assist us with some of those tasks, and not at 100% capacity, but someone who's got 50% capacity? And even though there were not many administrators in the area, and even though at that point in time, asking for that support felt like accepting defeat in some way, it felt good to be able to articulate the need, to have the conversation, and to know that it has been heard. And I felt better coming out of that meeting, even though, of course, my manager at the time could not give me the immediate answer, but it felt better to articulate and voice it and know it's been heard. So that is the one lesson I learned during that time. The other lesson was to actually speak to a professional who understands and who can empathize, but whilst protecting my professionalism and whilst allowing me to vent in an appropriate way. Why is that important? Because at a certain point in time, with a lot of stress, I didn't want my words to be constantly moaning about, oh, and this, oh, and I've got that, oh, and I've got that, and all of these issues. Because the truth is that no one has forced me to be a mom. No one has forced me to be employed full-time. I can actually leave the employment at any point in time if I choose to, right? And at the same time, no one has forced me to do an MBA. But however, the stresses of life have become really overwhelming. So one of the lessons there was to actually find a safe place to vent, whereby I'm not taking all those anguishes and those stresses out on my loved ones, whether it is my partner or my children, because for some of you who are parents, you might be able to relate that when the child asks you something, you'd be like, just go find it yourself. because we're stressed. We're not angry with the child, but as I mentioned to you, it is that stress, that anxiety from all of these things that we're juggling, suddenly coming out and manifesting, and we take them out on the most vulnerable around us, which would not be our boss. It might not be my colleagues because, hey, I count on their feedback for that performance appraisal, but it might be maybe my child, for example. So what did that mean? And I'll be vulnerable with you right now because I'm here to share my lessons from climbing the ladder. And that is, be comfortable to seek that support. Be comfortable to find a safe place to vent and get the support you need. What did that look like for me? It meant reaching out to the employee wellness platform that we had. And that might be called different names in your environment. For us, it was also known as ICAS. So what it was counselors, psychologists on the other end of a toll-free line. And it was anonymous, so nothing that I shared would be shared with my employer or with my family without me consenting or without me providing that approval for them to actually go and share that. And I could have that conversation with them in person, or I could actually speak to them over the phone. And it's a trained counselor who will actually assist me that, hey, maybe have you considered that if you leave the office at 5 o'clock, what if you actually go and take a walk before you get home? Park your car by the spa around the corner before you get home. Just take a 15-minute walk to de-stress. Simple idea, but something that I'd not thought about, for example, during that anguish and stress and trying to deal with all of these production issues and the phone calls that are coming in about this and that and that. So that's one of the lessons I want to just share with you from navigating the ladder. And why is that important? It's important because as leaders, we need to be able to actually manage ourselves firstly, lead ourselves firstly, before we can actually be leading others effectively. And we can also not be leading people where we are not comfortable to go. So we need to be comfortable to go to the hairy places, to go to the uncomfortable places within our mindsets. So that anguish, as I mentioned, be aware of how it is I am. How do I show up when I'm anxious, when I'm stressed, when I'm happy, however I feel. When I'm happy, jumping on the table might not be appropriate, but when I'm happy, it might be okay for me to pause, go run outside and jump and scream for joy, come back and look all put together and composed in a session. Right. Let's move on to values. One of my peers accepted the promotion that I turned down. It was a very, very painful time for me to turn down that promotion. The reason why I turned down the promotion was that after some thought, I realized that it's very important for me to be available and to be around my children, especially in their first 5 years. That promotion would have resulted in me traveling 40 to 50% of the time. The promotion looked fantastic on paper. A very, very senior role. It would translate to possibly the home of my dreams and, of course, a car of my dreams. So in all angles, the responsibility as well across several end markets, and end markets being a portfolio that is more than just South Africa. And that would mean that I would get to travel a bit. So you heard what I said, that yes, traveling is one of my favorite ambitions. It's one of my favorite pastimes. However, I had to consider my values and ask myself, my youngest, at that time, my youngest was about 1.5 years old. And as a mom, I was nursing her. And I realized at that point in time that I've got two options. I can take on the role, wean the child, because that's also fine. There's no right or wrong. Children can also get the formula. That's fine. There's no right or wrong. However, what is my value? And in order to make decisions at times, we actually need to consider what is our value, and at that point in time, what is most important to me. And our values will drive us towards a decision that will give us peace of mind. So you need to know what is important to you, and especially for the different seasons of life. So now I get to travel. The week I spent in Mauritius, I went without children, and I actually got to go with 5 friends who are also mothers. And all of us chose to actually go to a resort in Mauritius that is adults only, no children allowed. And I actually didn't think too much of my children during that time because I knew they were in safe hands and they were happy and getting spoiled rotten. So what I'm saying is that for that season of life, that decision, as painful as it was the right decision for me because I got to witness the exciting things in my child. I got to witness her taking her first steps. I got to witness her going through all of those key things that are important to me as a mother. Now, what I want to share with you, everybody, is that there is nothing wrong with being a working parent who chooses to feed purity to your children and who chooses to give them formula from start. It's now we're going into a very strong motherhood conversation. That's okay. That's absolutely okay. And it's also okay for father as well, who also chooses to be very involved because the world of work is also changing. We are also getting parents, fathers who are also very engaged. That's absolutely fine. However, what's important is for you to be comfortable with what it means for your career. Not to have a bitterness, but to have a comfort that this is the decision I've made for now. I am comfortable with this decision. Whilst I'm in this phase, this is how I am going to grow and groom myself so that for the next step in my ladder, I am ready for it. So my choosing to focus on not taking the promotion, but to stay in certain roles that would allow me to be a present parent, it was not at the expense of climbing the ladder that way. However, I was able to navigate it in that way. What does that mean? It means that during that time, I started attending agile boot camps. I started getting involved in rolling out agile within the team. So although I was not traveling, I could actually support my boss in train the trainer. So what we did in order to manage cost expenditure and budgets within the organization, a few of us went on the courses, and what we did is that we then compiled courses that were relevant to our organization as a train the trainer approach. So that was just simply over and above everything else I was doing, delivering the programs and the projects. I then took that on. Why did I do that? Because then I realized that I would get to learn more. It would expand my knowledge and my growth whilst I am in this phase of growing in this way and not necessarily in that way. So that is values. I'm also going to touch on values now with a very negative experience. The negative experience was a situation in which staff members, team members were threatened with their lives, with their livelihoods by a senior leader, and threatened to the point that they were actually shaking. So I don't know if you can see me right now, but I think Colleen spotlighted the camera. So you can see I am shaking. You would see faces being red with absolute fear. And these people were shaking, who've gone red with fear, and there would be tears in the meeting. These are senior leaders as well, very knowledgeable, very competent. However, an environment has become exceptionally toxic. to the point whereby the communication is so toxic, to the point whereby the thought of just being in that session, that senior leadership session, evokes fear that people start shaking when they have to start presenting. Visible fear. And there is tears, physical tears, on the faces of people who would normally be commanding a forum with 500 people with the grace and confidence of Barack Obama. That is how toxic the environment became. So what do you then do? At that point in time, I was in a role whereby I had achieved a 4.5 as a rating. And the rating scale went up to 5. So in terms of the rating scale on performance, 1 is really poor performer, and 5 is excellent performer, on track for an excellent promotion, really doing well. This organization must hold on to this person. They are the next, the next Bill Gates coming into this organization, whatever it was. A 5 is where we all aspire to be. And a normal rating was maybe like a 2.5 or a 3. I was on a 4.5 in terms of my delivery and my rating at this time. However, I was in this toxic environment. And as I mentioned to you, I don't cope well as an individual if I have to sit, fold my fingers, fold my hands, and just assume that, oh, that's their problem. I work with a team. I care about my teams and the people I'm working with. I care about delivering as well. I care about my stakeholders whom I've committed to. But I also want to make a difference. And if something is a problem today, I would like to know how I can get involved in changing it tomorrow. That is me. That is my value. But I'm taking you back now to that toxic environment. I'd ticked the various lists. I'd phoned ICAS, help, I'm terrified. I'm beginning to shake within myself. I'd spoken to my line manager because one of my values was transparency. So my line manager, I kept my line manager in the loop, and we used to check in once a week, 30 minutes. Hi, how are you doing? This is where we're at. Is there anything from your side, etc.? So my line manager was aware of that dynamic in that space, and they understood the difficulties, but because of the seniority of the stakeholders in that toxic space, they were nervous to also get involved. Why? Because they knew that there was a lot of clout and authority that could impact their career negatively if they dared to say anything. What transitioned then was a lot of turnover, a lot of resignations. And then for every corporate environment, as you know, as one person resigns, someone is celebrating about getting the role. So the roles will be filled just as fast, and the turnover would continue just as fast. So the turnover was significant. One of my values is integrity. And as I mentioned to you, I do value myself in being somebody who's got the energy and wants to make a difference. So at a certain point in time, I spoke to my manager to say, it's become really bad. What do we need to do? Do we need to actually ask for external support? Because right now it's been you, my line manager, and myself trying to figure out what we need to do. I have spoken to the relevant leader or leaders in question about how we could possibly address the issues that maybe are leading to the toxicity in the environment, but no positive outcome has transpired yet. Do we need to ask for additional support from our human capability or HR or whatever? And we said, yes, let's do that. What I want to say to you is that there are certain values, certain moves that we might make that speak well to good values, but might not necessarily give us the outcome we want as we're trying to climb the right ladders. So for that rating of mine, which was 4.5 and on par to get an award for excellent delivery, my rating was not turned down. However, I was not given the promotion due to one sentence which was written on my development plan, that the leader had said that when the leader was asked to give feedback, the leader mentioned that Rosalind delivered. However, it was unnecessary to mention anything to HR about the issues that transpired in the department. And because of that, I was then not given the promotion that I was working towards, because my manager and the other leader were scared and nervous to interject or challenge that leader because of the clout and the fear that they led with. It took me a long time to get to a point where I'm actually comfortable to speak about this, because it was very toxic, and the toxicity was such that we actually ended up having some people in hospital for mental breakdown. So guys, this is very, very real. And even though it might not be mental health or mental wellness awareness month or whatever it may be, I do want to beseech you to be aware of yourself, be aware of when something is not sitting well, that gut instinct. Be aware of, what is this telling me? How am I feeling towards this? What do I need to do to move from this to that? So after that incident, obviously I had to accept the situation. I was, at that point in time, I actually did consider, do I leave the organization I was working with at that time? And I actually made the decision, no, I'm not going to leave, because I've done nothing wrong. In fact, I am proud of myself because I have followed all the right paths in terms of how we work in our corporate, which is engaging with the teams, looking into myself, trying to be a better leader, engaging with the leadership, also following the protocols with my line manager, with the HR. Nothing was out of line. And that's why my rating as a performer was not downgraded in any way. However, there was the disappointment, and it's